There's a lot of music that I had written that didn't make it into the score. And initially, as a composer, when you create something, you're emotionally attached to it, and it's very hard to let it go. But the most important thing is to remember that the visuals, the story is supreme, and that the music needs to support that. And sometimes it takes a word from, the producer Nathan or the writer and director Ben to say, that's not quite hitting it. And it's usually then that I recognize that it's not hitting it. It's great music, it's fabulous music, but it's not working with the scene. And so we need to put that aside. So there's hours spent writing music that doesn't make it into the scenes. And really that's just part of the process. As a composer, you need to be ready to do that sort of thing. One of the first scenes that I needed to hit musically was the scene where Gina is talking to her father, Rudy. And her father believes that she's at the train station waiting for her brother, but really she's at the ballpark with Johnny. You also see the gun in that scene. So you get a snapshot into how troubled she is. And what is she going to do? Is she going to kill him? Is she going to welcome him home? So I really needed to hit that scene musically, and it was important because you have Rudy, the father, you have his character revealed in that scene, and you also have Gina's character revealed in that scene. So I went with a very simple and delicate theme for Rudy, a theme that was stable, that was major, but yet had longing in it. And for Gina, I decided to go with a guitar that was affected with delays and a little bit of distortion to represent something that was far away from the father's music. So not only in terms of instrument, but also in terms of key. Gina's in the key of D minor, and Rudy's in the key of E major. So you've got a pretty good distance there, not only major and minor, but also in terms of the notes that are being used.
You could have gone pro. Yeah, could have.
An interesting thing that happens with Rudy's piano theme, which for the most part stays the same. I do variations on it just to give it variety, because it'd be very easy to get tired of the simple piano music that I put to Rudy. The other thing I did to vary it a little bit was I had Rudy's music begin to drift in key. There's a number of scenes where he's out on the dock trying to contact Gina. He gets her voicemail at one point, and then we go back to scenes at the ballpark or up on the hill with Johnny and Gina. There's the interplay where Rudy on the dock and Gina and Johnny are moving relatively quickly, and for me to jump between keys that quickly, going from Gina's key to Rudy's key, would create music that's a little bit too disjunct. At the beginning it makes sense to have Rudy's music in the key of E major and then Gina's comes in at D minor, because you really hear that divide. But at this portion, in the middle of Stealing Home, where the story is beginning to really move toward the end, I didn't want to do that musically. It wasn't working. So I had Rudy's music drift toward Gina's key to keep a cohesive thread through the music. It worked out, I felt, pretty well, keeping the essence of Rudy's theme, but also keeping the music connected. What's interesting about doing that is on those scenes the scenes with Rudy on the dock, you get a sense that he's becoming more anxious, because he too does not know maybe what Gina's going to do, or is his son going to make it home. So he's becoming more anxious. So it makes sense to have his key drift a little bit from his original beginning. When Gina and Johnny were on the hilltop, I wanted to change the character of Gina's music. I no longer wanted to use the recurring guitar motives and the incorporation of the Take Me Out to the Ball Game theme. I wanted to actually create a song that would capture the emotion of Gina, because it's really the first time that she expresses herself. She confronts Johnny. She says, "Where were you when Dad was in the hospital?" So on and so forth. and she really lays it on him. She was really holding back in the other scenes, but now she kind of explodes. So I wanted to create a progression and a melody that captured that angst.
That's why you came back? Where were you when he was in the hospital fighting for his life? Where were you every night when he'd walk out to that dock and just stand there, lost? He didn't know whether you were dead or alive.
Gina, sweetheart, I hope you get this. I just, well, I feel it's important that you know that I love you. And nothing and nobody will ever come between us, Gina. Everything I have is yours, honey. This is your home. And nobody's gonna steal that from you. Well, we've been mourning for a long time now, Gina.
If you are satisfied with your message, press 1 to listen to your message. Press 2 to erase it.
The biggest challenge for me as the composer was scoring the end of Stealing Home. In my scoring sessions with Nathan and Ben, we agreed that it needed to be big, fully orchestral. Now this is kind of a problem because the score prior to this is very delicate. So how do I do that? Well, I took Rudy's theme, his piano theme, and I worked it out orchestrally in the end, incorporating a bigger and more broader theme on top of his same chord progression. So it comes in the high strings, then eventually you hear it down in the low cellos, and then it comes again at the flare with a cymbal crash in the winds and strings, basically fully orchestrated, everything but the kitchen sink, really. And that's how I built up to that point where the flare was being shot, because that's really the rescue moment, and that's the moment that the music really needs to hit.
You're crying.
I'm just so glad you're home.
I'm trained as a classical composer, and my instinct is to stand out. Listen to this melody I composed. Check out this chord progression, or this orchestration, or whatever it may be. I have to remember, always remember, that the story and the visuals are supreme, and the music needs to support that.